I wrote an essay shortly after I took Anagarika ordination where I asked, is the spiritual path a lonely one? And Venerable Chojan was very kind to respond to that in a BBC by that same title. And I watched it the other day and I was really thankful for it. And I've continued to reflect on that same question. Basically, what is the meaning of renunciation? And when I wrote that essay, it seemed to be mostly one of no's, can'ts, and don'ts. And that's because I was still adjusting to reduce contact with family and friends. And my conclusion was that renunciation meant letting go of people that I care about and heading off into the wilderness alone. So having been ordained for 2 years now, or over 2 years, I now see that the path to liberation is not about cutting ties with sentient beings, but actually strengthening and increasing them, but just in a different way than we're used to. One of the discussions during the Exploring Monastic Life or EML retreat was on identities that we hold. And one of the questions was, which identities that you have open opportunities for you and which ones limit opportunities for you? And I really appreciated that question because it helped me to see that most of the identities that I've had during my life, such as related to age and gender, class, sexual orientation, have disconnected me from other people, and they've limited my ability to see our commonality because they're based on differences. And then I also realized that the one identity that I have that has helped me to connect with others is becoming a monastic. And this is because there's a quote in a book by Thich Nhat Hanh that I read as an Anagarika. It's called Stepping into Freedom, and it's about advice that he gives for his novice monastics. And I just love that title so much. The idea of monastic life is stepping into freedom. I think it's really beautiful and quite true. And in the introduction, he analyzes the meaning of the word shramanera, shramaneri in Sanskrit. And then he concludes his little etymological analysis by saying that a novice is someone who is deeply determined to end suffering and to love all beings without attachment or discrimination. And that last part really struck me, that as monastics, we aspire to love all beings without self-reference or bias. And again, this is a very big difference than the love that I've been used to most of my life, which has been highly dependent on how other people treat me and very limited to only a small number of people. And then yesterday we had a novice ordination at the Abbey. And in the ceremony, there's a part where the preceptor explains to the candidate that monastics should possess 5 virtues in order to be worthy of receiving offerings from lay people. And one of those virtues is to sever attachment to loved ones by treating all sentient beings with equal kindness. And I thought this was a very interesting concept, that we can actually reduce our attachment to those who we hold dear in a self-centered way by expanding our care for all beings. So in other words, genuine love can be an antidote to attachment. And I've also reflected on something that Geshe Dado said when he was last here for some teachings a few years ago. And during that teaching, he was sharing about his recent visit with his sister. And it was clear that he really had a really good time when he was with her and enjoyed her company so much. And then that prompted a woman in the audience to ask, wouldn't life be boring without attachment? Even you seem to get so much joy from being with your family. And then Geshe Dado responded that, yes, as ordinary sentient beings, we're going to have some attachment for family and friends. But we should also try to increase the amount of care that we have for everybody else so that it begins to equal the love that we have for our family and friends. And I found this response a big relief because it helped me to see that reducing attachment doesn't mean closing our hearts, but rather expanding them to encompass all beings. And we do this in our practice by meditating on the 4 measurable thoughts of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity, and of course by meditating on bodhicitta, where we commit to developing all of our good qualities and abandoning all of our negative qualities so that we can be of most benefit to others. And then someone during EML said that they feared abandoning those who they were close to by becoming a monastic. And Venerable Chojun responded that by dedicating our lives to the Buddhist path, we're increasing our ability to help them in this and future lives. And in this way, we're not abandoning anybody and are promising to stay connected to them and to all beings until they reach full awakening. So I'm now encouraged to see a spiritual lifestyle not as one of saying goodbye to people I care about, but rather increasing the number of people I care about, but in a more balanced and less self-centered way. And once we realize the deepest truth of dependent arising and interconnectedness, I think it will truly be impossible to ever feel lonely again.